Number 10. Not so long ago in my city, I don't know if you heard about this, but a drunken bus driver drove his bus into a choir class in elementary school and almost killed every one of those kids in that class. It was a very sad moment for my city. Anyway, I'm a 16-year-old who doesn't believe in ghosts or any paranormal shit. One night I get a call from my friends and I'm invited to play soccer. Although it was like 11 p.m., I agreed, and my friends and I met and we started playing soccer. I didn't realize back then, but that field we were playing on was very close to the school the bus driver drove into. Anyway, after hours of playing, my friends, we were three, kicked the ball out of the field and it lands in that school. We argued who should get the ball, and eventually we agreed we should all go find it. We climbed into that school. We tried to go searching the ball. It was so dark we could barely see anything. After 10 minutes of looking, we were tired and we wanted to go home. I look at my watch and it's about 3:30. If I remember, suddenly me and my friends started to hear a tiny high-pitched voice coming. We didn't know where it was coming from. We went towards the voice and it became louder and louder. Suddenly, we heard a bunch of voices, like a huge wall of choir of angels singing in a perfect high-pitched noise. Suddenly my heart missed a beat. I was shaking. I almost wanted to kill myself on that. I realized that the place the voice was coming from was the same place that the choir class got killed from the bus driver. The moment I realized that, I ran for my life while shouting for my friends. What I realized, they started running too. It was so dark we could barely see our feet. We ran and we couldn't find an exit, and the choir music became louder and louder. It felt like the spirits were closing on over there, like I'm having a spirit ride, and my friends are following me until we found a small bridge and we slip ourselves through it. When we got my friends and I almost fainted. We couldn't speak. It's like we met death himself. From that point on, I never walked past that school again. Sometimes at night, I can still hear this choir of angels singing. I can see the children's faces while I'm dreaming, but they have no faces, but they are crying. When I was in high school, my best friend was that kid that nobody else would be friends with. We had a history, and I suppose I took pity on him for having such a rough time in school, so I took him under my wing, so to speak. He was very emotionally troubled, depressed, sometimes suicidal. We would get easily worked up and argumentative. My friendship helped him through all that. It was my self-harm and our mutual friend, who is now one of my best friends. He is the only one I can really talk to about our experience. We had a bit of a rocky relationship here and there. Eventually I figured out that he was a compulsive liar, building himself up so I can make him seem more unique and likable, just so he could fit in. I could seriously write a book with the shit that he would say and do. I called him on it, and he was really upset, but he said he'd stop. He never did. His lies became exaggerated, but they were still lies. He started talking down on me and insulting my intelligence, because he was never sure that he was smarter than everyone. He also tried to be very manipulative, which in my naive teen years I never put together. His family moved across the country after we graduated. I can't really say I missed him terribly, but our relationship was strained, largely due to an incident in which I was manipulated to betray the girl I loved at the time, thinking he was a relationship expert. I don't know why, I just ended it with him right then and there. The next summer, he came to visit for a week, and it was worse than I could have imagined. It was almost unbearable. He was driving us crazy the whole time. When he left, it was such a breath of fresh air. That was 3 years ago. I slowly began to distance myself from him more and more, ignoring his calls, messages, making it abundantly clear that we were done. In hindsight, this wasn't the best way to deal with this, as I could have given him the courtesy of closure. Part of me just wanted to blank out that particular part of my life and never remember it again. Fast forward last summer. I'm on vacation with my family and my girlfriend. The night before I head back home, I have a dream with this guy in it. I'm at a concert enjoying myself when I see him in the crowd. Immediately I think, shit, I gotta get out of here. He starts running after me, but I manage to shake him and get back to my car, where I find him waiting for me. He asks how everything's been going on with me, ignoring him, and we hit the road. I basically tell him straight face that we know that everything's done, he's a lie, and brought up a specific story in which we knew either was wrong or lying. He looks like he's going to puke and on the verge of tears. Still in this dream, we arrive at my house in the car. Silently choked, he asks, "Well, can I at least crash at your place for tonight and think about it?" I close my eyes and am so overcome with the bout of sleep paralysis, which I suffer from frequently. The drink is over and I'm sweating. The next day, my girlfriend and I are driving back home and I get a call from my friend asking if I heard anything regarding that kid. I was perplexed and I called my best friend. He immediately looked into it. He died that night, likely within a few hours of my dream. Overdosed on meds and died in the hospital. No note, nothing. I'm hearing this as I'm stuck in traffic. I had no idea what to do. I told my girlfriend about the dream, and she was spooked. I had no idea how to greet this guy. My friend and my family was smothered me with their sympathies, when all I wanted to do was hang out with our best friend and just come to terms with it. I told him about the dream, and he didn't know what to make of it. I still have dreams with him in it. To this day, it's ranged from us hanging out and all being buddy-buddy again to me talking with him. Eventually, where his life went. I worked it out in terms, just a dream, and I look at him and say, "You died," and the dream ends. Once, I had to get up really early in the morning to go on a trip from my job. It was about 3:30 in the morning, and I had forgotten to go and get gas for my car the night before. I stopped at a station about a mile away from my house because it was well lit and it was a nicer area. Anyways, I pumped the gas and then I got the weirdest feeling I needed to move. I moved behind my car and away from it. I noticed this huge guy hiding in front of my car. He was sneaking towards me. When I got the urge to get away from my car, I was completely alone and I'm just a small girl. I almost always had mace or something to get the hell out if I'm by myself. This time, I had a knife and I pulled it out and just started screaming bloody murder for him to get the hell away from me. Then he started moving closer around my car and I screamed even louder. And an attendant came who called the cops. Definitely one of the scariest moments of my life. Not really scary, but a little weird, I suppose. About 13 years ago, there used to be this religious group, or maybe they still exist, out near the lake Elsinore, that my friends and I called about the Screaming Asian Cult. The members would climb up this hill in the middle of the night and just start screaming what sounded like "you" for like 2 hours. I think it was like a Korean church, but it must again have been a decade since I have thought about it. One night while we were listening to them scream and having a beer or two, we weren't drunk or buzzed. Something ran past us on two legs about 10 feet away. It was moving too fast to be human. I mean, I guess it could have been a Usain Bolt, but I highly doubt it was. And it was not a coyote or dog. We're sure what it was. We're not, but it left quickly. I'll have to dig around some boxes and might find a video of that evening. We didn't catch whatever ran by us, but I believe there was like 4 or 5 of us mentioned it on tape. I recently began reading these stories online. It first began with the usual Reddit stories on the No Sleep subreddit. Some of these were just plain dumb and made absolutely no sense, while some scared the living daylights out of me. There was still one story I remember that I still recall mentioning a small girl that died in the closet of his room. As a form of punishment, the father used to lock up in his closet whenever he felt it. Reading stories never really affected me in any way. They were simply a way for me to get off my mind and my own personal problems. But what really freaked me out still haunts my mind to this day. As I was reading the stories, an hour past midnight, and both my parents had left to attend a wedding, and I was home alone. Just to clarify a bit more, I was 18 and no siblings or pets to keep me company. Anywho, I know reading scary stories about late hours is pretty insane, but I felt like reading something, and what better than some scary stories to keep you awake at night. After reading the story about the girl and how she died, I kid you not, I swear on my life, that's when I looked at my closet. I caught a glimpse of what looked like the little girl's appearance in that Justin dressed in a white shirt with a large red stain on it. He looked straight at me with despair and sadness. I have no idea if my imagination was taking the better of me or not, but it felt very real and definitely sent chills down my spine. I immediately lunged back and gave out a small shriek. I quickly closed my eyes and held them tight for a few seconds. I realized that nothing was there anymore. I got off my chair and started walking around the house, turning on all the light switches and all the lamps that were there. I turned on the television to create some noise and to reduce my fear and anxiety. Hearing another voice on the TV helped calm me down a bit, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. I was never one to believe in such things before that incident. I began to wonder if ghosts and paranormal beings were actually real or not. To my horror, I simply did what any normal person would do. I started researching about this, and yes, it was very late at night, but it wasn't like I was going to fall asleep anytime soon. After researching a little, I came across a few videos on YouTube about true scary stories. You think that after what I just witnessed, I would come to sense about and just forget about it, but I stumbled upon something called a Ouija board that could be used to contact spirits. I started watching people using Ouija boards. Some of them looked fake, but some looked real. So I decided to try it myself. However, it was about 2 a.m. in the morning and my parents still hadn't come home. I started to worry about it for a little bit, but I had other problems to deal with right now. I checked the layout of a Ouija board and started copying it down on paper. Then I cut it out as a piece of circle, as a planchette. I didn't really know how to start communicating with the spirits, so I started watching seances. Most of the videos with the mediums speaking to the spirits, asking whether or not they can hear them, is crazy. I followed every procedure they did with my faulty homemade Ouija board. If any spirits are around, can you please contact by giving me a sign, I said. I waited a couple seconds but got silence. Ring ring, suddenly our home phone started ringing loud. I jumped up scared and waited for a few seconds, like a startled cat. I was hesitant on whether or not to pick it up. Then I saw on the card ID as it read Dad. I wondered why he would call at exactly 3 a.m. I quietly picked up and I was scared for my life. Hello, Dad? I asked nervously. Hey, buddy, why are you still up? I wanted to say we won't make it back tonight, so you don't have to wait for us. You will hear from us in the morning. We love you. His voice shook in sorrow. Okay, I'll talk to you. Love you. Bye. I assumed the homemade Ouija board didn't work, so I finally went to bed. I took one last glance at the time, and it read 3:13 a.m. I closed my eyes and fell asleep shortly. Ring ring. I quickly reached for my phone, taking it with my parents, but unfortunately it was a hospital. To have called early in the morning and to inform you that Mr. and Mrs. K have tragically passed away. They were dead at 2:51 a.m. We're terribly sorry for your loss. When I was 11, we went on a tour of an old war of 1812 fort in Canada where 80 plus died in a battle. There was a small building with a dim light with a reddish tone with my mom in the window of a building, a tall shadow with clear head and shoulders and what looked like a faint black mist surrounding it. It was a fairly small building with nothing inside, the group popping around out a review or anything like that. We looked around and noticed that the red light was gone. The only light that was in the building was a creepy old lamp that the guide was holding. It seemed my mom and I were the only ones who saw it. There was nowhere for anybody to hide in the building. We told the guide and sounded interested, and he said he hadn't heard of it before. It was my first paranormal experience ever. I remember it so vividly. Even though I'm 14 now, I'm still interested in the paranormal. I used to have a good friend. She was around 21 by then. I was the same age. We were in contact a lot over the internet. Short messages, phone calls, and meeting. Pretty early, we got to know each other. I found out she was suffering from panic attacks and out-of-body experiences. Every time we were together, an out-of-body experience happened. We sat down and talked about it, but usually ended in me having to bring her to a safe haven because of a panic attack. The digger we deeped, the more extreme her panic attack. The safe havens were usually her home or my car. There she felt better. Well, this part just to let you know that she was a kind of strange person. One day she called me up early in the morning and asked if I could pick her up from the doctor's. I was just about to leave my girlfriend's place anyway, so I did. In the car, she breaks down in tears and told me the doctor said she was pregnant. I knew recently she met someone, but I had no idea their relationship was serious up to this point. I told her she needs to tell him, but she denied saying anything. No idea their relationship was this serious up to this point. About 2 weeks went by without anything out of the ordinary. Then I had a pretty long phone call with her one evening about how to handle the whole pregnancy situation with her boyfriend and so on. So, she agreed that she would talk to him during the upcoming weekend. Well, that never happened because the night after I woke up around 3 in the morning having the strange feeling to look at my phone, who was on mute and no vibration. There was nothing on my phone, no calls, no texts, no mails, no nothing. As I was up, I decided to get a small bottle of water and visit the restroom. After that, I found myself putting my cell phone next to me, staring at the screen. No smartphone, just a normal cell back then. The screen did light up from a call. I didn't watch the screen. I instantly knew who it was and the issue, so I picked it up. She was on the other end crying. She woke up with blood-stained sheets. She said, "I know." She asked me what to do. I told her to call her mom and go to the doctor, even though in my head I knew exactly what happened. The other Thursday, we shared a discussion with her boyfriend that weekend that she no longer needed the child at approximately 3 months. So my workplace is super haunted, like terrifyingly haunted. My first week there, I noticed things moving on their own, brushed it off. Next week, things moving farther and harder. Things just kept slowly escalating. I was working alone, but it felt like someone was watching me. I turned around and saw a huge, at least 6-12 foot tall, black mist. This scared me to the point I ran out of the area I was in and found a co-worker. Shortly after the mist, I was moving an empty vehicle when I heard a loud footstep behind me. I spun around thinking it was my boss trying to scare me, and something hit me really hard in the back. I gasped, grabbed the area, and it immediately started burning, so I pulled my hand away. I asked a coworker to look at it, and they stared, freaking out. I had a huge red handprint on my back. It lasted for 2 days. It had been the full extent of my series so far. I refused to be alone in that area where all this happened. The minute I even get close to it, a feeling of dread drowns me. This all started about 10 years ago. It's a little blurry. When I was about 10, my life changed forever. Everything was normal for me. Perfect home, 5th grade, perfect family. Then one day it all changed. I was walking out from school like I normally did. I was still a couple blocks from my house, and all of a sudden, I shit you not, lights out. It was pitch black outside. I was walking past this sort of abandoned house when the fucking scariest dog I've ever seen just appeared. Looked like it was a fucking inch from starved. A greyhound. I pretty much shit my pants at this point. I decided to haul ass and I fucking heard a bark behind me. Every day this fucking dog would follow me home. At the same time this happened, my father and my mother got divorced out of nowhere. Fast forward a couple years. Now I'm 19 and my best friend Kenny got a raise and we decided to rent an apartment together. The day we moved in, we were chilling sitting up against a wall. As quick as the previous owners wanted to move out, I felt a sharp pain in my back. I got up and started at the wall. Kenny says, "Fuck's wrong with the owners? What are you?" He got up and looked too. Fucking stars and David demon shit started popping up. We decided to get the fuck out right then and there. A couple years later, letting Jenny to hold his dad. And then later his dad killed himself. Kenny went insane and is still in an insane asylum somewhere.